Clip, clip. Hello? Oh, clip it. All right. I've done this before. Great. Thank you. Just clarifying something. My work has not actually been featured in many collections, I would say. But hopefully soon, whenever I'm done being a uni student. But yes, hi everyone. My name is Hanni. I'm 19 and I'm very honored to be here tonight. So thank you to the Sploosh team for inviting me. I've about half an hour, I've been told, to read some of my poetry, and no one's ever given me that much time to read poems to a room full of people, so we'll see how many I manage to pull off. So, in case you don't know me, I'm probably most known for writing poetry about growing up as a Burmese person in Singapore. But I also have very universal human experiences, like being ghosted by the person you like. So, in honor of these temporary tattoos that I got, partly because of a recent heartbreak, I thought I would begin by reading a poem that I wrote when I was 15. And love poems are not my strength, I would say, but when I first posted this piece to Instagram, Alfian saw I liked the post. So I want to say it's not that bad. So this poem is titled, Release the Doves. Release the doves. These days more than ever, I want to belong to someone, to hold and be held, to call mine. It's a simple wish until you think of all the technicalities and modern day anxieties, and it becomes a matter of feasibility and timing. I've learned now that love is a choice, a commitment every day to make something out of the flutters of your heart. And I think I will start choosing against it now. Love isn't just holding hands, it's also double meaning and public transport and curfews and witnesses. It's also feeling brave enough to reach for someone's hand and being confident that they will reach for yours too. I'm not built like that, not built to withstand the anxiety of letting go. Maybe I was supposed to be, but I've weathered too much and too long without anyone closing my windows to shut out the rain. And I will crumble just thinking about my sweaty hands drenching yours. I need to stay standing. As much as you sway me sometimes with a half confession of affection, you lodge it between emoji hearts, a joke or two, and I stop short of an idiot reading into bite-sized ideograms. The doves have stopped flying. We send our own messages now, and your emotions retreat as if they were armies. Call me a coward, but here, have the hearts I've ripped from my sleeves. I don't want to fight a cold war. Thank you. I have a lot of poems planned, so if your clapping gets a little lethargic, I completely understand. So to follow up, I'll be reading a much more recent love poem, written with someone different in mind, thankfully, but probably just as dramatic. The working title is very simple, Word, and yes, I'm taking suggestions. So this is Word. The worst pain you feel in the throat. Me, the poet, the linguist, the loudmouth, the insufferable metaphor maker, letting you walk away from me without a word. When I learn new vocabulary, I put it down in a little book by my bedside. You are buried in there somewhere, inexplicably both Latin and Indonesian in origin, explaining beautiful places I fell in love with, only to never speak of again. How do I make sense of you? When you come up in a sentence, my mouth seals itself. It is in the mornings when you escape from my lips, remnants from yet another dream that time has taken away. We are smoke and mirrors now. You are dead and nothing more. A forgotten dream, a mythical island, something I spent ages trying to understand, only to be forced to give up in a moment. And yet, you will always be on the tip of my tongue. Thank you. Okay, and thankfully we're moving past the love poems now. Hi. And okay, somewhere along my growth as both a person and a writer, I grew very attached to the idea of places, specifically places you frequent with your loved ones without realizing that you're frequenting them with your loved ones. So I think there are some that are very unique to Singapore, like HDB corridors and food courts and specific bus stops and specific MRT stations. So here's a poem I wrote, which you can imagine taking place at your favorite kopitiam or yakun outlet. So it's titled kaya toast, and bending reality. I used to hope we would last forever and that I would see you through. And then when the time comes and our gods call for the sun to crack into two as we had boldly and insolently claimed it would, we would be drifting through space together, hand in hand. You would have reached for mine as the molten lava went over our heads. I thought there'd be at least 1,000 more mornings for me to pour runny eggs into your bowl. Answer coffee when you ask coffee or tea, watch it splash over the edge of mugs, feeling sorry about my unsteady hands. Too sweet, you would have taken to saying, and I would have taken to asking for less and less condensed milk each time. Our order changing shape, but arriving always at the same table. Were we ill-fated in ways we hadn't realized? Conversations, scrutinizing galaxies, and breaking yolks, and charting lives, and yet not a single breakfast that illuminated the true endings. In the face of ours, the greatest death, routine. Thank you. I've been told I need to end my poems more clearly, and that is either too abrupt or it's too random of a line. So, okay, I'll take the pause between the applause and the actual end of the poem as, notes for my next poem. So, okay, in my ideal adult life, I eat yakun for breakfast, and then I go to buy groceries for the week. So next is a poem that happens at NTUC. So this is called Your Mother Passes You Cash and a Grocery List and implores you to be kind. All my past lives collude in a supermarket aisle at 10 p.m. Fluorescent lights, rows of eggs, strawberries imported from Korea that never failed to disappoint. Next to heaving sacks of rice, I am small again, enough to fit in the warmth of my mother's hand. She frowns at misshapen fruit, and the oranges she put back down will roll around inside my head for eternity. An eternity later, I am older, free now to gorge myself on any brand of neon candy I ever wanted, even though it has long stopped mattering. Now I wander the aisles for different brands of bread, different brands of loneliness, drag my feet to pay with new perspectives on abandonment. There is ill-fitting nonchalance in the cashier's goodbye, as if time has stripped the word of all its meanings. I leave the store carrying the weight of this knowledge. Here is a routine that will outlast lifetimes. So when I return home and the vegetables I've bought are unloaded and rinsed and scrutinized for their own freshness and longevity, I will listen carefully and remember how to pick ones that will last at least a week in our kitchen fridge. And now we proceed into the immigrant experience. What is the immigrant experience, you might ask? Well, for me, it has involved having flown on a plane since I was 6 months old and having Decembers reserved for flying back to Myanmar for as long as I can remember. And for the rest of the year, it involves regular phone calls between my mom and my grandmother. And this used to be once a week, but now happen every day after a hip injury that's put my grandmother on prolonged bed rest. And my immigrant experience is declining to speak to my grandmother on the phone and then feeling extremely guilty about it afterwards, which is a complicated feeling, of course, that has inspired a lot of my writing. So another part of the immigrant experience I've learned recently is withholding bad news from your loved ones until you think it'll be less painful for them to hear. So for my family, it can be anything from the death of a childhood friend to my grandmother, the same one with the hip injury, burning her face with hot oil while cooking in the kitchen. And these things can go unspoken for months and months. So this secrecy is definitely something I appreciate now, something I wouldn't have understood if I were younger. And it's something that's still confusing to be on the receiving end of. So this next brief poem is titled Pwa, which is grandmother in Burmese. Pwa. In the picture sent to us today, a scar has bloomed across my grandmother's face in the shape of an archipelago. It was red and angry in February, my aunt says, reaches us now after it stopped hurting. To myself, I think, there is no such thing. Pain has forgettable beginnings and inconceivable ends, and to the blood of spring revolutions, we are no stranger. But now, here in my hand, crackles a frail voice. On these cross-ocean calls, wading through static for familiarity, negotiating spotty internet and disrupted telephone lines, I'm searching for survivors, stranded on an island, on my grandmother's weathered face. Thank you. It is weird, I'll say, to write poetry about someone who probably will never be able to read one because they don't speak English, but yeah. So speaking of Myanmar, my mother recently booked flight tickets for us to go back this year and visit said grandmother. So my winter this year will be a Burmese one, and I'm quite excited about that. So this brings up another specific experience where every time we're in Myanmar and have a few days left to our flight back to Singapore, my mother and aunt will call a taxi and head to the nearest market and return with bags and bags of Burmese fish that we will chop up, freeze, bring back to Singapore, and then proceed to cook and eat for the next few months. So my poem is titled Ayawadi Fish, Ayawadi being the name of the river that supposedly produces the best freshwater fish, at least compared to Singapore, maybe? So yeah, and it's actually the first poem I've ever done a reading of, and I read it, I think about 2 months ago in this very spot, so it's quite nice. So this poem comes off as rather woeful, but I assure you, I'm looking forward to my flight. Ayawadi fish. My mother may have red blood, but so did the river caught fish. I saw it right there in their veins when they were frozen, gutted, packed away in recycled cardboard boxes labelled fragile. They'll never swim again. Though one day they'll be beheaded by the woman whose skin I've never really seen broken. So who's to say what colour her blood really is? All I know is that the rolls of tape scattered in the living room were brown. The frozen fish was sealed away in brown. When I'm picking up our things at the baggage carousel, I'll see the brown ones first, battered and beaten, looking like old blood. And when everything comes home and it turns out the veins have gone brown too, my mother will have one more thing to frown about. And that would be just one of all the things we give to fly every year in the name of fish caught from rivers. Thank you. So, to round up the immigrant arc, I have a longer, more self-centered poem. So for context, I think I first became aware of my own otherness when I was sitting for an exam in primary school and had to fill in an optical answer sheet, or an OAS. So for those of you who can recall, an OAS sheet is that sheet of paper with a lot of bubbles that you're given when you're taking MCQ tests, and you're supposed to shade it for every question. And at the top of the page, you have to fill in your full name and shade individual bubbles for each letter too. And I remember panicking every time because my full name, I realized that my full name is quite a bit longer than some of my Chinese friends. And more importantly, Burmese people don't adopt family names. So I was just a tiny 7-year-old kid panicking about what my first name and what my last name was supposed to be. And many years later actually, in a Racial Harmony Day class discussion, I was talking about not exactly the experiences of being other, but the difficulty of talking about such experiences, because as painful as these have been, it sucks to feel like you're imposing on other people. So in response, one of my classmates coined the phrase, quote, "It's okay to hold space," which inspired this poem. So this poem is on taking up space. Minimalism should only ever plague Nordic interior design. Lock it away from Southeast Asian girls with body image issues. Where was Marie Kondo circa 2016? Every PSLE paper, the name field might as well have been a row of landmines. 4 options, 4 syllables. More letters than you would think, spilling into margins. I spell it out to everyone I meet who seems like they can't master the phonetics. Maybe they see stars or little square boxes too, or bubbles, shades of dark terror and red flesh. It's a mouthful. I hope it doesn't swallow you whole. Burmese characters are mostly round. For that, my aunt calls them an easy alphabet. But on me, it's a lost cause. My face deemed the size of a full moon, stuff of monster legends and ethnic New Years. I fast in worship of my own image, work at it and chip it. I dream of waning. When my grandfather is in a good mood, make him laugh and move the earth. The only room I should occupy, I should be able to buy with wit. Pain is an installment plan with a bad name. Talking about pain is a mood killer, an uninvited house guest, a lack of civic consciousness, like daring to take a seat on the bus as a young person. Never mind that you feel like the most fragile thing in the world. Stand and stumble the rest of your way. If it doesn't spark joy, throw it away. Take these, the OAS slips, the weighing scale, colossal shame, the kind only born from mammoth love. My extended family, by the way, devours airport arrival halls. Is there a trash can big enough for all that? Thank you. For my very last poem of the night, I think I'm a bit fast, but hopefully it's okay. We are bringing back a little bit of anxious romance and also my personal obsession with fish and marine life, as you might see on my arm over here. I read this poem especially in honor of my friends who are here tonight, for many of whom consider this poem a personal favorite. And friend or not, thank you all for being here on this Saturday evening. So here's my final poem, very simply titled Aquarium. We are in an aquarium, you and I. You press your face against the glass like you're trying to melt into the ocean. And for a moment, all I want to do is leap in. I would love to explore with you, go in search of the biggest whale and prettiest corals with you, get lost together in the deepest depths. But we are here, in this aquarium. You are staring in awe at all the odd fish, and I'm standing next to you, so close, yet too far, my palms wet and mouth dry. One day I'll learn what secrets you hold. Thank you, everyone.